So it seems that we've got some enormous Space Marine rules reveals for the datasheets coming at the weekend. Rules for Marneus Calgar and Cato Sicarius, though in particular the Victrix Guard are looking rather wild. Apparently one squad of them hitting home might be 37 attacks at strength 6 and damage 2, never mind any attached characters. Let's talk through the rules for the shiny new toys for the Ultramarines. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today I thought we'd talk through the new Space Marine rules and look through what the Ultramarines can do on the tabletop. Games Workshop's been going heavy on the Space Marines lately, and they've got a particularly big release week for the Astartes this weekend. The pre-orders going live on Saturday the 25th of October, with the miniatures going on full sale in stores on Saturday the 8th. The biggest and most hotly anticipated one at the weekend is the Crux Terminatus box set, featuring the Assault Terminators and the Ancient, but beyond that it's fairly Ultramarine-centric, Calgar, Cato Sicarius and the Victrix Honor Guard being the new units, a combat patrol, and then a few more releases for other 40k, with the Drukhari Archon, some repacks for the Chaos, and the Red Gobbo coming out, with new miniatures and an entirely new unit in the Victrix Honor Guard. We knew we'd be getting some Ultramarines rules previews sooner or later, and it seems that Games Workshop's decided to get the rules out prior to their release. If you were looking to pick up any of the miniatures at the weekend, check out the channel's affiliate discount retailers linked down in the video description. Element Games for 15 to 20% off in the UK, Gap Games for 21% in Australia, Toy Snowman for 15% off in Canada, Wargame Portal for 15% in the USA, and Tash and Geldeep for 16% in the EU. I'd imagine that most of the Ultramarine stuff is going to be fairly obtainable. I'm a bit apprehensive as to whether or not they'll make far too few of the Crux Terminatus box sets, seeing as that seems really popular. If you do want to have a chance of landing that at discount, I'll probably be ready when they go live. Here are the pre-order times around the world for those stores: midnight Eastern Time over in North America, and then 10 through to midnight in the rest of the world. As ever, a big thank you to anyone buying through those links. It does help to support Auspex Tactics and keep the videos coming. Let's get into those rules reveals though, and it seems that for this one, Games Workshop have done a sort of preview article on Warhammer Community, rather than actually publishing them up for download and onto the 40k app. So this is technically more of a preview than the rules going live immediately. Apparently the datasheets and the full rules will come for download on the community site after their World Champions of Warhammer event, which finishes on the 9th of November. And to be fair, most people won't have these new models in hand until just shortly before that. Either way though, it's quite a big rules preview. We've got rules for Marneus Calgar, Cato Sicarius and the Victrix Honor Guard, a few clarifications as to how they relate to their codex datasheets. It sounds like both for Calgar and Sicarius you're probably going to be able to field either model, at least for the time being, but we don't have the full details yet, as we don't have points cost for any of them. Reaction particularly to the Victrix Honor Guard is very positive and thinking that they'll be a scary unit, but obviously that depends on the points cost that they charge for them, and having a big stacked up squad with Calgar, Cato and the Victrix is probably going to run you approximating somewhere between 400 and 500 points, so certainly bear in mind they could be either strong or weak at this point. Otherwise, they also said they'll add the new datasheet for the Jump Captain at this point, which seems quite likely just to add in the chainsword option that he doesn't currently have on his datasheet. And given the precedent of the rest of the chapters, we're quite likely to get an Ultramarine-centric detachment of one sort or another. I guess potentially Gladius, but for a couple of them they've done alternative First Company ones, though they didn't choose to mention that here. It's possible we might get a few more details tomorrow from Games Workshop's affiliated content creators. They've often had new detachments early, and if we do so, I'll certainly cover any more news that comes out on the channel. Getting into the rules that we do have though, first up we have the Victrix Honor Guard. These guys can guard the command of the chapter, and got redone from the previous resin kit on the left to the new shiny plastics on the right, with their axes of Ultramar, Artificer armour, nice eagle helms and capes. They're in a 3-model box set and the price for that looks like it's going to be $65, so it should be around about £42 or €55 or so. Really quite a lot just for the base models, though I'm honestly not too surprised that they cost more than the standard 3-model Elite box sets for Games Workshop, given the presence of that massive chapter banner. That was really quite cool to see redone in plastic, and a bit of a centrepiece for Space Marine armies. In the squad you can either equip them with the default loadout, one can be an Ancient and one can be a chapter champion, the guy with the helmet crest and the paired blades here. Looking at their datasheets, and for army construction you can basically attach captains or chapter masters to them as if they were company heroes. As these guys are an Ultramarine specific datasheet, that'll mean they could guard a standard captain, otherwise seems they could guard Marneus Calgar potentially with both armour types, either the Gravis version or the new Terminator version. Either of the two Cato Sicarius datasheets, the new one where he's the head of the Victrix Guard, but it seems that given the old one it is a captain he'd still be able to join. And then you also have the option of Uriel Ventress as well, as another named captain. At first impressions from that, it doesn't look like Lieutenant will be able to lead the unit. They can join 2 company heroes, but doesn't say that they can join here. It's only captains and chapter masters as per the rule. In the unit it sounds like you're going to be able to field them as per box of 3 like normal, 3 or 6 models in the squad. Their actual miniature selection is a bit more freeform. 1 to 6 Victrix Guard, 0 to 1 of the specialists, and 6 models maximum, but given that you'd always be paying for 3 of them, it would normally make sense just to field one guy by himself. It's kind of interesting that both the Chapter Champion and the Ancient are included free, but it seems you just get 1 copy per army, given that they're epic heroes. It's also kind of interesting to see epic heroes on a unit that isn't a character unit as well, so these guys won't be taking enhancements, I suppose. That does make sense though, you wouldn't expect 2 banners of Macragge flying side by side. Before we move on to their damage, defense and stats, I'll just give a quick shout out to today's video sponsor and toy Snowman. One option to pick up these guys or other Warhammer if you're based over in Canada. They're a discount retailer based in Montreal. They offer Games Workshop's Warhammer miniatures at 15% off as an official discount seller and do most of the normal things that you expect of a standard discount retailer, free shipping at over $150 Canadian, and a points related loyalty reward program for a few more discount points beyond that. The website's linked down in the video description, generally quite easy to search and bring up the Games Workshop things that you might want. They generally tend to go at least fairly heavy into pre-orders, and if there's things that don't appear there, then you can email them for back orders via the email address that you can see on screen. For the Ultramarines and Crux Terminatus releases at the weekend, they're certainly aiming to get pretty good stock of the new shiny Marines. Obviously, hopefully Games Workshop actually has enough to meet demand for them, but could be a good place for Crux Terminatus if they do sell out at a few of the more bigger names. As mentioned, I believe they'll be going on pre-order around midnight Eastern time, so check them out then. In any case, a big thank you to them for sponsoring this one. Check them out linked in the video description if you want some discount minis in Canada. Let's get on to the profile for the Victrix Guard though, and they really are quite chunky, scary Space Marines. They've got 4 wounds apiece with a 2+ save, so seem to be a level above even more normal 3 model elite units for different armies. A lot of them tend to have 3 wounds. I guess these guys are maybe taking precedent from the company heroes with their big chunky 4 wound profiles, and they also get the same debuff rule that the company heroes get. While there's a character leading a unit, they're all -1 to wound, which is going to be relevant really quite a lot of the time, as most things will be wounding these toughness 4 Space Marines on a 3+ or better. It means they're going to be super near invulnerable against small arms that might be wounding them on 5s or 6s though. Obviously we don't actually know how good defense they're going to be for their points. Their points cost could be very high indeed, and bear in mind they do have 1 less model than the company heroes if they're competing against them. For their objective control, they get OC2 built in. It seems they've just gone for representing that on the base profiles, as opposed to having the chapter banner granted. Then for their damage output, the base guys with the guns get 2 shots at strength 4, AP 1 and damage 2 with their mastercrafted bolt carbines, and they all hit on a 2+ as well. For standard bolters, those are unusually punchy. Kind of interesting they went for the captain profile one, but certainly one way to make their shooting actually feel somewhat relevant. They'll be more relevant for a bigger unit than a smaller one though, as neither the Ancient nor the Champion get the bolt carbine, and they both seem like models that you'd want if you were only running 3 of them. For their melee, they get mass strength 5 attacks, hitting on a 2+ at strength 5, AP -2 and damage 2. So quite nice in general purpose mastercrafted power weapon style profile there. That will definitely help out against sort of medium infantry. Very nice into things like standard Space Marines. But it is a profile that's going to struggle to punch up against tougher stuff without some sort of support. They're not going to be doing too much to tanks at base aside from their big banner turn, as they'll be wounding them on 6s. The Champion gets a directly buffed profile for giving up his gun. He gets 6 attacks at strength 5 and damage 2, gets twin linked on those attacks, so he's going to be a fair bit better against tough stuff, and he also gets the precision keyword as well to snipe out some enemy characters in melee, and feels like with twin linked on those attacks he does have enough damage that could be a serious possibility. Then finally for their damage, they get a once per battle melee buff from the Banner of Macragge. Once per game at the start of the fight phase, the bearer can use this ability. If it does until the end of the phase, add 1 to the strength and attacks characteristics and melee weapons by models in the bearer's unit. That means that all of those guys will be hitting at strength 6 and 6 attacks apiece, the Champion going up to 7, and that does feel pretty murderously dangerous there. Quite a big deal against things like toughness 5 Terminators, and does mean that you're wounding toughness 10 and 11 things on a 5+, which is going to be a really big increase to their damage output against those. The Ancient also gets a power weapon as well, so he's going to be hitting with that same mastercrafted power weapon profile there. As you might expect, both the Ancient and the Chapter Champion seem that auto-includes. Overall, it definitely makes the squad rather punchy. I still can't help but think that just given the sheer size and standing of that banner, I thought it might be some sort of aura rule to help out units nearby, which I guess might have been kind of clunky if these guys just want to charge directly into melee. Maybe it feels like they could have tacked on some sort of aura of reroll leadership, or reroll once to hit in melee or something. It just might have been nice to have it give an additional buff in a formation. Then finally we've got their other special rule, and it seems that they get a surge move. Glory to Ultramar means that if the opponent shoots this unit and one of the models is destroyed, They then get to immediately make a d6-inch move towards the nearest enemy unit, and potentially able to jump straight into close combat with them if they choose to. This one's not reliable with a d6-inch move, but does make them really quite an intimidating prospect to get too close to. They do seem like the sort of high investment that you'd want to line up a whole bunch of damage dealers to hit them really hard, and he could ruin a lot of firepower by moving into close combat, and potentially due to sequencing fighting before that enemy unit that you just jumped into melee with. Not super reliable, but makes them just that bit more annoying to deal with, and this could be a pretty serious combo with Cato Sicarius' reactive move as well. Rather than keeping the unit safe, you could actually reactive move straight up into the enemy's face, so that if you shoot and kill one of these models, they're going to be in combat no questions asked. Overall, just for their datasheet rules, they do seem pretty enormously well-rounded and very scary indeed. If you do go for the squad of 6 of them, then on the banner turn with +1 attack, that'll be a fairly monstrous 37, strength 6, AP 2 and damage 2 hits, all hitting on a 2+, a few of them being twin linked, plus the damage of whatever character they have, which is likely to be at least something fairly considerable. The character would also get the strength and attack buffs as well. It's going to absolutely obliterate most infantry style targets, and against tough stuff, still going to be quite a lot of threats. They seem like quite a good target for Oath of Moment with that on the go. If they can be wounding a bunch of vehicles on a 4+, then it's going to make them go through things very easily indeed. Per model, they have quite good defense with 4 wounds, -1 to wound and a 2+ save. That surge move makes them intimidating to be near, and both Cato Sicarius and Calgar, or potentially both of them, seem interesting to lead the squad. As mentioned, Cato's reactive move could combo with their surge move, and Calgar's interesting for both big hitting damage and advance and charge. I feel like in absence of points, people are looking at that and thinking like that's going to be a great combo. I would bear in mind though that it's probably going to be a unit that's around 450 or more points there, which I mean they'd certainly have to be pretty great and impactful and utterly dominate one area of the board, and the opponent's going to have a lot of firepower to level at them. Will be interesting to see what sort of points they wind up as. I feel like company heroes are maybe the thing that's most easy to compare them to. They're 105 points for 4 guys with a 3+ save. For these ones you get fewer models but much boosted stats. If I had to very loosely guess, I would expect there'd be more than the company heroes, possibly somewhere in the region of between 110 or 140 points for 3 of them, depending on how generous Games Workshop feels, and double it up for 6. At least in theory it might be sensible for the small squad to be a little bit more expensive and the big squad to be a bit cheaper, given that you have those pretty significant once per army upgrades in the chapter banner and the company champion locked there. It also means there would be diminishing returns on getting a second squad of these guys. Depending on points cost, they could still be good that way, but you'd be paying the same points cost, and you wouldn't be getting the banner or the champion that the first squad got. Otherwise, you could maybe use transports, you could jump out of an impulsor if you wanted. That seemed like a fairly monumental threat to be just in one small transport vehicle with 6 of these guys, plus Cato perhaps, and I feel like they're going to be a big interesting unit that can make great use of a lot of stratagems. The Lance and extra AP one in Gladius seems rather great, and they'll love Armour of Contempt with those 2+ saves as well. Obviously strength is going to massively depend on points cost, but at least for their base stats they seem like really quite an interesting and exciting unit. Hopefully Games Workshop balance them right. Next up, let's talk Cato Sicarius. His new model has been quite a long time coming. We saw him teased in some Primaris art ages back, and he was one of the few fine cast models remaining for the Space Marines. In the lore, he's the ruthless and proud previous captain of the Ultramarines 2nd Company, lost in action for a bit, though turned up to help reboot a Gilliman, and having been replaced in a 2nd Company, was ultimately made captain of the Victrix Guard to guard the chapter's elites. He's well known for exemplary ability, but also a bit of a reckless streak, and particularly for his appearance in the text-to-speech series. His new model has him with a helm similar to the other Victrix Guard, holding a sword aloft, and standing on some all very Roman-style steps with Macragge written on them, and a couple of head swap options, either with this bare head or one with that bare head yelling. You can't put the helmet on him, unfortunately. Price-wise, he's $48, so it's likely to be around £29 or €37, as per their Epic Hero character price tag. In-game, this version of his datasheet is simply called Cato Sicarius. The Codex Warner is named Captain Sicarius, and perhaps surprisingly it seems that he's not necessarily a direct replacement. This version of his datasheet isn't able to attach to other units, he's literally only able to lead the Victrix Honor Guard, and he gets the special rule that he can still join that squad if Calgar does, making it an absolutely enormous threatening Death Star of a unit. Interestingly, he gets Captain of the Honor Guard as a special rule, saying that your army can't include more than one Captain Sicarius unit. That's kind of redundant with his epic hero for this particular datasheet, you couldn't take more than one anyway. And that does kind of imply that the old one isn't going away or being made legends or anything, and perhaps implies that you'd have the option either to field the previous datasheet or this one in your army, but not both. At least at first impressions though, this one looks better. His stat line is unchanged, the same as it was before. 5 wounds with a 2+ save and a 4+ invulnerable save, a captain with some fancier armour there. He gets an Artificer plasma pistol that's always overcharged but won't cause hazardous hits on him, Not bad for frying an enemy Space Marine or something, but the big buff that he had was to his melee damage, which is significantly more scary. That Talisarian Tempest Blade has got 3 different profiles. It looks like it's going to be better against near enough all targets. The Strike profile gets 4 attacks at Strength 6, AP 3 and Damage 3 with devastating wounds. Very nice for attacking Terminators or putting a few extra big saves on tough stuff like monsters and vehicles. It's got an anti-horde profile for blending 1 wound infantry, 9 attacks at Strength 5, AP 2 and Damage 1 with sustained hits, able to take out significant chunks of whole squads there. And then a character killing sort of profile, 6 attacks at Strength 5, AP 2 and Damage 2 with precision. So it means he doesn't need to use 1 command point for Epic Challenge to put the hurt on enemy characters if this profile is going to be okay against them. I guess alongside a Chapter Champion, you could have a very good chance of killing enemy characters here. Overall, that's really quite nasty and seems pretty similar to the Adeptus Custodius Blade Champion, just not having quite so many attacks. It does seem that he's going to add some pretty significant threat to that unit though. Then finally he has his special rules. Knight Champion of Macragge allows you to do a 6-inch reactive move when an enemy ends a move within 9 of him. Those 6-inch reactive moves are really quite a big deal, often done with stratagems, but it means that you could back off from enemy melee, hide from enemy shooting, or as mentioned briefly, step your Victrix Guard squad right up to the enemy that ventured somewhere within 9 inches of him, so that if they shoot them and kill a model, you'll be surge moving straight into combat. Those abilities are already great, and seems like you have one other and very powerful and annoying option to be able to do with it here. Given the special rule in that unit, it seems better than before. Otherwise, his second rule is a 0 CP heroic intervention, maybe feeling a little bit more situational, but still a very big deal. It means that a big scary Ultramarine squad will be able to protect units nearby. If the opponent charges something and they wind up within 6 inches of this unit, there's a good chance that the Victrix Guard can step up and just absolutely delete them. Overall, at least at first impressions, he seems like he's a pretty good character to put in the squad. Again, will completely depend on points whether or not he is better than other options though. He will be dependent on the Victrix Guard being good to be fielded, given that he can't be taken elsewhere. But presuming both they and he are well costed for their abilities, he does look like the sort of unit that you would want to pair with them. His damage profile is more punchy and flexible than the previous one, and particularly that Strength 6 and Damage 3 with devastating wound profile, that is something that the squad will find some good value in. Otherwise, the auto 6-inch reactive move is pretty enormous on that squad with their surge move. A heroic intervention gives them another way to get into combat and put those scary melee profiles to good work. With him and the Victrix Guard, seems that you just have a very flexible unit that you could use in all manner of ways. Then finally we have Marneus Calgar himself, seen by many as a bit of a pointless model to update given that he had a recent Primaris era design in his Gravis Armour of Heracles, but for whatever reason they decided to make a Terminator era one for him. In the article they did confirm that the Gravis Armoured one will still be playable after the Terminator one comes out, though given it's off sale it's probably heading for Legends at some point in the future, maybe when Games Workshop release the next Space Marine Codex, which odds on would be an early 11th edition. Perhaps good news for people who want to use the model and those fun Victrix Guards with the shields. It means the Ultramarines have yet more options that they can field in the meantime, but at the same time not exactly the best feels for the Victrix Guards being on borrowed time. If you really didn't care for the new models though, the previous one does have a pretty similar appearance. It's not like the Terminator one's really changed in stat lines all that much. For army construction for the new Marneus Calgar datasheet though, is a model that can attach to almost every single Space Marine infantry unit now. Not literally everything, he can't go with some of the fire support things, but it's not too far off. He was already weirdly flexible with units that he could attach to, I think due to the old model being Gravis but his guards being Tacticus, and now basically they've lumped in the Terminators and the Victrix Honor Guard on top of that, so there's very few things that he can't lead. He does have the Terminator keyword on his datasheet as well, which I guess could be a weird way to get the Terminator keyword into all sorts of these units. There are a few options out there that can only be used by Terminators, say the Return to Reserves one in the first company. It's probably not exactly the biggest deal, but might have some unusual interactions there. Currently the Gravis Armoured Calgar with his Honor Guard generally tends to join company heroes, but I feel like that's in no small part due to the presence of those Victrix Guard being nice tanky profiles that you can put in a unit that's already fairly chunky. For his in-game profile though, his actual core model just really doesn't seem to have changed all that much at all from the Gravis one that you can still field. The single biggest differences are that he doesn't get his 2 guards with this one, so he won't add quite so many models, mass and defense to the unit that he joins, but at the same time that should mean that this version is significantly cheaper, though how much cheaper at this point we don't quite know. He gains deep strike on the datasheet given that he's a Terminator character now, though that'll only be relevant if he's leading Terminators where he can warp onto the board alongside them. Otherwise for his stat line they've kept the basic one literally exactly the same. Maybe a bit weird to see Terminator characters getting toughness 6 for no good reason. My guess is they just didn't want to have 2 very slightly different profiles for him, even if you might have guessed that the Terminator version might have been toughness 5 and Gravis toughness 6. His weapon profiles are likewise unchanged, the gauntlets of Ultramar for some twin-linked pistol shots, and then some big hitting damage in close combat. 6 attacks at strength 8, AP 3 and damage 3 with twin linked, so quite capable of stacking some good damage on either elite infantry or tanks and vehicles due to twin linked and re-rolling wound rolls. It doesn't seem that he got any sort of profile for that curious power sword on his belt, which admittedly he would have probably struggled to be wielding in those gauntlets anyway. Then otherwise, his special rules are unchanged, they're the same as they were before, and really quite good ones. He gets to advance, shoot and charge with his unit, so very nice for getting scary stuff into melee, and is also able to fall back, shoot and charge, so you can't just pin him there with something tough or some sort of chaff. He is going to be able to jump out, shoot things and go where he wants. Both of those seem pretty excellent for a massive investment unit like the Victrix Guard, and feels like they work quite well with the idea of Surge moving them into combat, particularly if you did combine him with Cato Sicarius in the same unit. You just have a vast amount of movement options for the squad. Otherwise, he still generates his command points if he's your warlord, and that means Guilliman not being on the table. If Guilliman's around, that rule won't take effect, so just a small nudge to either take Guilliman or Calgar and not both, though loads of competitive lists out there still double up on them. Overall, new Calgar datasheet will function more like a variant datasheet depending on whether or not you want to have him plus his guards, and the other advantage of this one is that he'll be able to attach to Terminators. Will be interesting to weigh them up when we know the points cost. This guy's going to be cheaper, though we don't know by how much, and those Victrix Guards do add a pretty big weight to the unit. Good defensive profile split across multiple models, and a whole bunch of high quality power sword attacks. They're currently already fairly auto-included alongside Calgar in the company heroes. It also seems interesting that Gravis Calgar looks like he can join the new Victrix as best I can tell. He is an Ultramarines chapter master, and it looks like you could have 6 Victrix Guard plus 2 of the Victrix Guard with shields, and then Calgar and Cato Sicarius all within one unit if you wanted an absolutely massive, crazy investment unit. I guess that if you wanted to go all in like that though, it's probably going to cost over 500 points or so. Overall seems like a pretty good day for the boys in blue. Quite a lot of extra options gained, and it looks like nothing's been taken away yet, and there's still the prospect of perhaps a new detachment coming for them. Feels like the addition of an interesting and dangerous elite unit is going to be quite a big deal for them, though obviously I'm presuming points aren't absolutely sky high for them. Let me know your thoughts on the new datasheets in any case. Which ones would you be tempted to include in your lists? That's about it for this one. As mentioned, feel free to check out the video sponsor Toy Snowman if you live over in Canada. They should have all the Space Marine releases going live this weekend. Thanks to them for sponsoring this one. And for those of you around the rest of the world, here's the times when the Crux Terminatus box set goes on sale from the discount retailers around there. Hopefully Games Workshop makes enough of them, and good luck if you're trying to land one. As ever, thanks to those who choose to support the channel via picking things up via those links when you do happen to get some Warhammer. I'll leave that there for now though. Feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see more like this. I'll certainly keep the regular 40k videos coming, with new ones out just about every day. If you've been enjoying the videos, Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that linked in the video description below. Channel patrons get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with the chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link's down in the video description. In any case, a huge thanks for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.